So we're looking at Gaudete, the season of the Sunday of Joy. I can still remember St. Mary Magdalene's in Toronto, the High Anglican Church. They quite prided themselves on that, and their elaborate vestments for this coming Sunday with the silver and gold thread, very ornate and fancy. We're not going to be quite so fancy, but we are going to have a hopefully lovely Sunday, and let's hope that the weather continues, that we are joyous both in our worship and at the concert in the afternoon. So looking forward to that. But the sense of joy, and it gets confused with folks these days. Joy is not happiness, nor the pursuit thereof in a Christian understanding. It's what you see in this passage from Luke. Then the heavenly messenger said to them, "Do not be afraid, behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy, which will be to all people." It is the coming of the Christ, the valuation, the life of Jesus, the death of Jesus, and as a Christian community, we celebrate the resurrection of Jesus. It is that knowledge that there is meaning and purpose, there's value to our living, and that brings us joy. Joy has called us to rejoice, and I hope you have gathered from me now the similarity in Hebrew between rejoice and dance. They are intimately linked, and I look at cultures where dance is important, certainly the South African culture where dance is important. For a long time, you think of the age of disco and the GLBT community. Amazing communities experiencing oppression tend to be express themselves in dance. Certainly the African American and tap and the origins of jazz dance and many forms in North America. Joy and dancing bring us to look at a Canadian painter, perhaps the most famous Canadian painter. And we're going to look at one of his works that we could go and see. It's only about 2 hours away from us right now. Can we have the next slide, please? This painting is Pavane by Jean-Paul Riopel. If you haven't seen a Riopel, you can go to the Musée des Beaux-Arts or the Musée de l'Art Contemporain. I encourage you to. As you can see from the photograph of Jean-Paul himself in front of this work, you can see the shadows. The black and white shows you the shadows more. I wanted to show you its scale. It's a mammoth work, and the layers of paint that he used. Riopel began the 50s starting to experiment with this kind of painting with a palette knife and every kind of color imaginable. He saw himself as a member of the automatistes, those who paint quickly, automatically, response without thinking, just by experiencing. And the way he painted in itself was a dance. He would paint 15 to 20 hours at a time, eating very little, drinking very little, and going into the canvas and back, going into the canvas and back, very much in the form of a dance. Riopel starts off as a surrealist and saw himself initially as part of that group or attached to that group, and is part of the surrealist exhibition at the Galerie Mag in Paris in 1947. The work we're looking at harkens back to another thing he saw in Paris, and I'll bring that in a bit. But to see the scale, and Mark Rothko, the American abstract expressionist, asked that his paintings not only be seen in dimmer light, but also close to the floor, that people can go into these works. Riopel wanted this painting also shown in that manner, that it's a world that you can move yourself into and spend time just existing in this painting. And I think of Canadian art as one of the most joyous paintings that I know. It's hard to be in its presence and not feel joy at the play of color and what he's doing. The next slide. And so we look at the triptych, the three-panel piece, in full color, in full scale. And the various tiles, some call them tiles, and some call them like stains. He got the name tachiste, staining a canvas. And the multicolor layers, we'll look closely on it in a while. But Riopel, he first went to France as a horse groomer and in northwest of Paris, and saw the great works that were there and gave him an excuse to see. He moves back in the 40s, late 40s, and stays there until really to the 70s. And hence his fame as a French artist, as an international artist. He was, though, a very strong Quebecois. He loved to fish. He loved to hunt. He wished he had been a mechanic. He loved automobiles. He loved speed. He had motorbikes and race cars, and I believe he even had a plane at one point later in his life. So, but he loved fishing and hunting and found his inspiration in nature. And I can't help but look at Pavane and see the Laurentians, either north of Quebec or north here, Montreal, the Gatineaus, the blues of lakes and the autumn colors and the forest green and the grays of rocks. They're all referenced, even though this is painted in France, as part of who he is. It comes out of him, and he wants us to experience that joy of color. It's an honest painting, and by that I mean the modernists, in the advancement of painting, moved away from 3-point or 2-point perspective. Riopel and others would see that as creating an illusion, because all painting is the medium paint on canvas or panel or any other surface. So to try to depict something that is not is betraying its intent. So an honest painting. He said, "When I hesitate, I do not paint. When I paint, I do not hesitate. I can't paint if I'm being watched. No distractions, no spectacle. I paint in one go without a break, whether it's 1 or 10 canvases, without asking myself when it starts or ends. Completely absorbed in the action of painting. Did an hour pass or was it a night? I don't know." He didn't want to sign a work because that would somehow signify that it was finished. And for Riopel, your encounter with the painting continues. But as I said, this painting called Pavane, a Baroque dance, Spanish dance, has another name, and we'll go into exploring that. The next slide. This is a current exhibition at the Musée d'Orsay of the British painter Bridget Riley, who studied the technique and works of Seurat. And what you see here is in the Musée d'Orsay, one of their Seurat, La Cirque, beside 2 canvases of Riley painted in the 60s that reference Seurat's color. She even worked out his palette and chromatic scale. And to me, it's one of the most brilliant exhibitions I've seen to show how art begets art. This is Bridget Riley. But let's turn back to Riopel in the next slide. This is Riopel's source. It looks abstract, doesn't it? Pinks and yellows and greens and other shades loosely applied to the canvas. It's painted in 1925. Riopel is born in 22. They overlap. I wonder if any of you can guess who this painter is. Let's try the next slide. It might help. This is in the Musée de l'Orangerie, just up from the Tuileries in the Louvre in Paris. And it's the last great works, 2 rooms, where you're immersed in Claude Monet's garden in Giverny. Monet is born in 1840, dies in 1926, and is perhaps one of the greatest French artists, certainly acclaimed as such, and certainly the founder of Impressionism. As Monet got older, he developed cataracts. And so if you're actually seeing a Monet, a late Monet, you're wise to squint. I saw an exhibition that showed that, what his scene of his garden would look like if someone had cataracts. And the effect is quite realistic. He was painting what he saw, but this vast expanse of really abstract painting, the jump to Riopel is not far. And the other name for the painting we look at is Hommage à Nymphe, homage to the water lilies by Claude Monet. Let's look at another slide of Monet. You begin to see the movement. Monet is painting how light and wind moves the surface and how colors dance under the willow trees and the water lilies bob on the pond by the Japanese bridge in his garden. If you look at segments and the way he's painted and the texture when you can go close, it's very close to where Riopel sees his art taking off. The next slide. Here's a detail, and not great focus. We'll have another one later that's better, but shows you how Riopel painted. This is the work that Pavin, this is a detail. The kaleidoscope of color, the prismatic. Did any of you ever have one of those prisms, a long tube where you could turn it back and forth and look at the colors that would emerge and overlap? Let's move to a next slide then. This is not Pavin. It's a very small work of 1952, but it, I think, shows you how he painted and beauty and joy and movement of color that Riopel emerges into. It involves him. There's still even some drip technique if you look at the bottom. He's just very loose paint, very quickly applied. He wants an immediate impression. Well, how do you feel about what you're seeing? What does it bring out in you? Maybe you're indifferent. I find tremendous joy. This is about the size of a computer screen. I could look at it a good long time. It was recently at an exhibition in Calgary, apparently. It shows you how he painted and the rainbow of colors that he uses. The next slide. And so this is a detail of Pavin. Can you remember where it was? In the pink section, I think of the hockey stadiums and the color-coded seats. Well, this is in the pink section of this wonderful, marvelous painting. And the color for this week and this Sunday, the joy, the gentle presence of God. and of how being in the presence of the holy and in the community of faith should bring us this sense of deep belonging, deep contentment, and deep awareness that life does have meaning. We are called to find joy in this, as Riopel himself found joy in the exercise and dance of painting. Every time I've signed a canvas, I feel silly. You don't stop the evolution, the development of a canvas by signing it. The canvas belongs to itself. It is its own, not the painter's. A signature is grotesque. It means I've finished. Finished what? Stupid. No. The feeling of joy in this season should be something that carries us much longer. It should be an experience that brings us love. How we can share what we will experience the following Sunday in community. To love is an act of joy in the presence of a creator. To engage in a dance. The last slide. And so we return to the dance that is Pavan. The honesty, the immediacy, the delight and movement of color that references nature, almost as if passing by on his motorcycle in October up north. The flashings of color and blue of sky and reflections in water, and brings him back to that garden that he did see in Giverny and the work of, well, he called himself an abstract impressionist. He rather liked that name for his art that he was producing. May we find a deeper joy of this season in the works of Jean-Paul Riopel. Let us meditate on the works. And so we move from the stained glass windows of Marc Chagall at the United Nations to the stained canvas that's almost like a stained glass by Jean-Paul Riopel. We look at the transitory nature of joy that great art brings us and the much deeper aspects that last longer. And so it is with this season. And so we conclude with the last verse of a hymn. Now to the Lord sing praises, all you within this place, and with true love and fellowship each other now embrace. 'Tis holy tide of Christmas, all others doth deface. O tidings of comfort and joy, comfort and joy. O tidings of comfort and joy.